my dining room was taken over as my studio. I actually ran over into the kitchen on top of the stove. I had everywhere laid out with this stuff because I needed to get them out. And you can imagine it was around Christmas time. So I'm like, I'm supposed to cook in here now and serve dinner. And everything is coasters all over my house. That's okay though, because I solved that problem. I built a studio. So I now have a dedicated space for my work.
Welcome to the Fluid Arts Podcast with your host, Kevin White, where we dive into the wonderful world of fluid arts, including acrylic pouring, alcohol ink, resin art, and more. In this podcast, we let talented artists share with us their techniques, inspirations, and tips for creating amazing fluid art. Whether you want to earn a living making art or improve your work, this is the podcast for you. So sit back and relax as we take you on a journey to learn more about this exciting and engaging art form.
Welcome to another episode of the Fluid Arts Podcast. Today we have an artist with us who is got a lot to talk about as far as sales. You guys have been asking, and we're going to be telling today. So her name is Dr. Sophia, and today what we're going to do is Dr. Sophia is going to be walking us through the process of how she created her coasters, and most importantly, how she sold them, as well as we'll have the photos up there, and you can click in the show notes to see where that is. So a little bit about Dr. Sophia. She is an actual doctor, and I'll let her talk a little bit more about that. Universal professor by day and passionate artist by night. So without further ado, welcome to the Fluid Arts Podcast, Dr. Sophia.
Hi, thank you very, very much for having me. I'm so excited to be on this particular forum. As Kevin mentioned, my name is Dr. Sophia Rolle, and by day, I'm a university professor, tourism management, and graduate student coordinator. So I do have this intense work that I do during the day. I do come home from there, however, and immerse myself in my newfound passion of fluid art. And I began 5 years ago in 2015. That's the first. I always wanted to be an artist. And so I took the plunge in 2015. I started off doing the traditional art, but wasn't too passionate about that because everybody does landscapes and those kinds of things. And that did not give me the kind of draw that fluid art and abstract art did. And so I stumbled actually on the acrylic pouring web page or Facebook page one day. And it's sort of like, ooh, this looks very interesting. So I began doing my research, spending loads of hours watching videos and methodology on how to get it right. I think as a professional in my day job, one of the things that's very, very important is making sure you get it right. Now, I made a lot of errors when I first started, but of course, that's the process. But I think I've been able to fine tune my craft to the point where others have recognized locally what I've been doing, and the art community have accepted the work that I'm doing now in this genre of art. So that's kind of it in a nutshell of how I began.
Yes, and how the community that you're talking about, you're in the Bahamas, right?
Yes, I am.
Yes,
and
yes, I am. Yeah, so we have a wide range of our acrylic pouring Facebook community, and that's where you started as far as affiliated with us. You've been here the early part of 2018, it looks like. So we're definitely glad to have you. Today we're gonna be talking about some art coasters that you have that you've shared, got a lot of attention, and your website and your platform. We'll make sure that we and we connect that at the end. But what's the one that we're talking about? Do you have like a name, or where did the idea come from?
As far as the coasters are concerned?
Yes. Do you have a specific set, or just coasters in general?
Well, I just call them my designer coasters, my customized designer coasters, because um, as we all know, fluid art is just that, fluid. It doesn't take on any particular shape. However, sometimes a client would come to me and say, I want something in some specific colors. We have a festival that is held every year called Junkanoo, which is one of our major cultural festivals. And so a client came to me one day and said, I'd love some coasters depicting the Junkanoo colors. Now, Junkanoo is very vibrant, so it uses a lot of vibrant colors. And so I said, like, okay, yeah, I think I can do that. And so I was able to design for her, and I have some of them here. She owns a small boutique upscale cafe, Cafe Channing Noel, and it's a coffee house, kind of. And so she wanted, her colors were, again, those bright colors. And so she wanted something that would blend in with her color scheme. And so I was able to produce these for her, and she was really, really ecstatic about that. And another young man came, who just started a wine label, also wanted something with those particular Junkanoo colors, and I was able to produce that for him. Because of the nature of her cafe, the wooden coasters obviously would work better, because in a cafe restaurant situation, things inevitably fall on the ground. And so you would not want to use one of the other kinds of coasters that I designed and made for that. So I was able to do that for her. Another friend of mine, I'm also a former athlete back in the day. Yes, I played volleyball for the country on national team. But anyway, she now runs an Airbnb facility in one of the other islands in the Bahamas, and she saw what I was doing with coasters and said that she would love to have some coasters as well. And in fact, she went a little further than just the coasters. She too sent me her colors. I don't know if you're able to see them. The lighting is not as good as I wanted it here. But these are sort of blue, yellow, and light blue, depicting the different shades of the ocean. The yellow obviously is the sun. Her establishment also is outfitted with those beautiful colors. And so I was able to match that for her. She again went a little further, as I indicated, and she wanted some wine glasses. We'll talk about that at another time. But I also designed the bottoms of her wine glasses with the same design as the coasters. So she now has a set of stuff. And I was so excited to produce that for these two ladies. You know, it helps you to understand that what you are doing is actually being valued by people who are actually seeing your work. And so a couple of years ago, these years are moving very quickly, 2 years ago, another person actually saw me in the airport. I was passing through, I was going off to my daughter in Iowa at the time. And she said, "You're the person that makes the coasters." And I said, yes. She said, oh, and she was so excited. She works for one of the largest casinos and hotels, the Bahama Casino and Hotel in country. And she said, we want to give our high-end clients a gift, something that's different, something that's special. And I was like, oh my goodness, my heart started to beat. You know, I was like, wow, yeah. I said, yeah. I was timid a little bit. I said, I think I can produce those for you. And that was a huge commission for me, because they wanted like 60 sets of coasters for their high-end client, which again tells you that what you are doing is valuable, and you, at the time you're producing it, you might say, well, but others see the value in it. And so from there, I've been able to garner a lot of attention just from the coasters that I do. And if you allow me, I'll talk a little bit more about the different types of coasters that I produce, because I think that's important to understand and to have some variety too when people come to your facility. So I do a wooden coaster, I do a wooden round,
Mhm.
as well as these are kind of a Christmassy. So we'll talk about the bowls and stuff a little in a few minutes. But I do a round wood as well as the square wood, and then I do a round glass, because I'm always looking as an artist, as a fluid artist, and I think you might be able to identify with this. You're always looking on any surface you see. It like, I think I could pour on that. So I came across these glass coasters on Amazon one day when I was doing some shopping on Amazon, and I'm like, now that would make a beautiful fluid art coaster. So I ordered some, and lo and behold, they came out perfect. They are perfect. And so this is a glass coaster. I also actually began working on a 4¼ by 4¼ and a lot of you are familiar with this, um, ceramic tile. Now, these are very special because I started off literally with using the ceramic coasters. The thing for me in the Bahamas was supply and demand. Eventually, because of the size of this is kind of a non-commodity anymore in building. So builders don't really use this particular size tile anymore. So it was difficult for me to find it. In fact, this particular one is a black coaster. You won't be able to see it before the artwork is on it. But I had to actually order these off Lowe's. And so bringing in, it didn't make sense for me to bring in um, import coasters because of the weight and the cost and everything. And so I only work with the ceramic tiles now as a request. And I was requested to make some of these the other day for a client, so it's fine. But I don't, as a general rule now, I try to work with the glass and the wood. And so um, because that it's easier to get those products in, import those products. So yeah, so I work with glass, I work with ceramic, and I work with wood as far as the coasters are concerned.
Yeah, that's definitely a true example of purpose. When you're doing something and you're not really sure. I know us artists can really kind of resonate with that, where you're creating something and you're before you expose it to the world, you don't know. And then when you have that validation, it really creates a motivation to want to keep going. I love it. That's awesome. And you said
Yes,
60 sets?
60 cents. Yes.
Wow. So I
So
know.
I have pictures where my entire, because at the time I was working from inside my home. So I took my dining room was taken over as my studio. I actually ran over into the kitchen on top of the stove. I had everywhere laid out with this stuff because I needed to get them out. And you can imagine it was around Christmas time. So I'm like, I'm supposed to cook in here now and serve dinner. And everything is coasters all over my house. That's okay though, because I solved that problem. I built a studio. So I now have a dedicated space for my work. And that again speaks to the level of passion that I have for my work. Because if I was doing this as a hobby, I would continue to just do it from my dining room table. I mean, obviously everyone cannot afford to build a studio, but I thought that this was this was important enough to me to make that kind of investment. And so I did that and was able to move my studio stuff from my home into a proper environment for that. And so, yeah, I now have the flexibility of going in there and really, once I close the door to my studio, I'm in a different world, believe me. And the creativity and the juices begin to flow. And sometimes you go in to your studio or your space, wherever you're painting as an artist. You go into your space thinking you're going to produce one thing, and you end up producing something totally different. And that's the creativity of this kind of art, and that's one of the reasons I love it so much.
Absolutely. And another thing that we talk about a lot here is about, specific environments that work in your favor. So, and also another thing that I kind of peeped was you said, you didn't say experimentation, but you were a perfect example of that, where you're like, hey, I see something that I want to start using, and then you start using it. You order it off of, you said Amazon, or
Amazon is my friend.
yep, you order it off of Amazon, and you
Mm-hmm.
create a piece of art, and then people end up loving it, and that stands up to word of mouth. And
Mm-hmm.
kind of dialing back from where we first kind of started, I was gonna try to figure out, like, what was your initial client? I know you've talked about how, the one client told another and another one told another, and that led to this and that. But what was like your first big break, would you say, if you had one?
I think that the whole airport situation, that was the first big break, because before I was just producing, you know, sets of fours and so on, and I would give them as gifts and so on. And then actually, I had my first show. I had my first show in 2017, and there I had coasters and I had bags and I had all of these other stuff. But in terms of somebody actually ordering a big, uh, you know, a big order, that came in 2018 when I was going through the airport, minding my own business, trying to get to my daughter in Iowa. And I was stopped, and she said, I'm going to get back in touch with you when you come back home. And I was like, okay, yeah. And so that made my whole trip just really worth it, actually. And that began orders for coasters. I get orders for my other work from just postings on Facebook, sending my friends like, hey, this is what I just produced. What do you think about it? And so I have clients in Canada and in the United States and so on. And so again, it validates what you do as an artist when others can see your work and say, yes, I love that. Because sometimes, in this world of fluid art and so on, you could produce a piece and you're like, I don't know if I like this. I don't like the colors. I don't like how it came out, that kind of thing. But another person could come to you and say, well, wow. I'm like, you really like that? So sometimes there's a little bit of doubt, even if you're not a fluid artist, and any artist, when they produce a piece and it doesn't resonate with them as much, somebody else could come and say, well, that is fantastic. And so I've had a lot of occasions like that when people have just said, I really, really, really love that piece. I want to have that. And so, yeah. And I think that happened after my first show when I invited a whole bunch of people. It was a public show, and they saw it and they really loved it. And so I was like, yeah, I need to do more of this.
Yeah, there's a lot of things that we could even segment and break down and really turn that into advice. There's a lot of exactly what an artist would want, because we have a lot of members who are already in creation mode, and
Mm-hmm.
they just want to know more about, like, how can I take that jump? How can I, like you said, make this a priority? They may not be able to afford a studio, but they have paintings that they could sell to then afford. So I would
Yes.
love to talk more about, that real quick. The well, actually, we'll just talk about that. So
Yeah.
the
So
go
one of
ahead.
the things I think I would encourage, and the thing about one of the things I like about this group, it's eclectic. It's people are all over the world, and you're right. Everyone's situation is different. I think I'm at a disadvantage because I have to import most of the materials that I work from. In America, for example, in Canada, for example, you could just go to a Hobby Lobby or Michael's or wherever and pick up your things. So you don't have the cost involved that I do. Nevertheless, though, you have what I've commented several times on the people's post when they begin to doubt the fact that they are artists. First and foremost, this is something that you are doing. This is something that you've invested your time, your resources, your energy in. So never, never, never discount what it is you're doing. I mean, we have all seen paintings with one stroke on it that have sold for $1 million.
Right.
Okay, so you here it is. You're using a lot of materials to produce something. Um, it is quality work that many of us are doing. Now, yes, we have the hits and we have the misses. But for the most part, those of us who are diligent students of this craft will and are producing wonderful pieces. And they ought to be sold. They ought. So my thing is, my community is very small. Again, I'm at a disadvantage because my entire country is only a quarter of a million people, and they're dispersed over many islands. So I have a very small environment to sell. So I have to push even harder up against all of the bigger, much more well-known artists. You have, for the most part, many of you live in environments where you have millions of people at your disposal. So take a chance, put yourself out there, but you have to. I'm gonna put on my teacher's hat here. You have to develop your craft first of all to the point where it's unquestionable, right? You also have to, as a marketing expert and a marketing consultant, you also have to package your materials to the point where it's eye-catching. One of the first when we eat with our eyes. Same thing when we purchase with our eyes first, and then we purchase with our heart. So if somebody comes up to and comes up to your booth or your artwork and it's not vibrant, it's not packaged properly, it's not labeled properly, then don't complain when it's not being sold. So that's one of the other things that I thought I would do with my work, because I'm in a small environment fighting against a lot of other artists who are, like I say, better well known. So I took it upon myself to go the next level with my own advertising, creation of Facebook pages, creation of Instagram accounts, packaging my materials, getting labels made with my name on it, going the extra mile. That is important, going the extra mile if you really want to make this, if you want to create some sort of living. Now, some people are just doing it because it's a hobby for them. This has gone beyond a hobby for me because I see the value one in what I'm doing, and there's possibilities in terms of selling beyond my borders and beyond the Bahamas. And so I have gone the extra mile in packaging my coasters, my clocks, whatever it is that I'm doing. I've gone the extra mile. One of the miles that have gone, one of the forks in the road that I've taken was to create. In fact, I've as in a fork, either 3-prong or 4-prong. I have done a couple things with my brand because, first of all, my brand is me, Sophia. So I've created a website where I've posted all of my paintings. I've posted and it has several pages. So you would have fine art from Sophia, my really, really, stuff that I'm also passionate about. Those are posted on my website on one page. I have a page for my coasters. I have a page for my clocks. I mean, we don't even have time to talk about all the things that I've produced. I have a page for, so I have my things in categories on my website. And I spent the money to get the website done properly. Everybody thinks that they can do a website. Duh, no. Get it done. Spend the extra couple dollars to get a proper website built for you so that when someone goes to your website, it jumps out at you. So that's one thing. So I've done a website. I have a couple of Facebook pages. My main page, which is Dr. Sophia Rolle. Then I have my company's Facebook page, Villa Gemella Art House. And then I've started, which is sort of another prong on the fork, a talk show that I talk about art and so on. And I'm talking about myself sometimes on my show as well, but I invite other artists into my circle to talk to them about their production and how they got started and so forth. So that's yet another avenue. Another prong that I've done was or is to sign up with an apparel company. So I can upload my designs on t-shirts, hoodies, baby stuff, mugs, all kinds of things for the world to purchase. So again, now some of this stuff is not necessarily free, but it's an investment. Anytime you invest in something, you ought to have some ROI, some returns on your investment. So you want to invest in those avenues where there's not a guarantee you're going to have a return, but the probability of you having a return on your investment is great. So that's another avenue that I've utilized as well. And then, of course, in the local environment, I've hosted my own shows. Sometimes at great expense because you have to pay for the venue and all of this kind of thing. And sometimes you don't sell anything. But I've not had that stroke of bad luck. I've been able to sell a few pieces. If you sell one piece, you've had a successful day. So I've had opportunities to host 3 shows. Now, you don't want to oversaturate because then it takes away the mystique of what you're doing. So I started, like I said, in 2015, and to date I've hosted 3 shows, and they were well received because they were shows that lasted for a week. So I've had my show up for a week, so I was able to get a venue where I can have my stuff hung and displayed for a week, and people came through and so on, and that was very successful for me. So there are a couple of things. I'm just saying that there are many ways for artists. We are artists. Don't let anyone, I've read some of the commentary where people are talking about, oh, Van Gogh and all of those. I look at, anyway, we're not even going to get into all of that.
Yes, it's just really so much to talk about. There's a lot of moving parts, and
yes,
there's so much advice in what you just said. We actually have a group of people who have said, hey, if you can find some people or some artists who have taken it to the next step and can teach us how to do that ourselves, we'll definitely be more frequent with the posts that we have. And, viewers, don't think that this is the last time that you'll see Dr. Sophia. We'll make sure that, we incorporate a lot of the stuff that she's saying, and we provide that in other ways and different things that she can teach as well. So you've already said a lot of things, such as hosting your own shows, having our own website. That's the not just making it yourself, but making it look professional, going the extra mile. There's tons of ways to, there's so many things. And I would love to keep going on this one, but we're going to make sure that we keep this relationship going. And we'll talk about the other things that you got in your arsenal. And really just following up one more time, if your listeners want to hear more about your work and what you're doing, where should they go?
on my website has a sampling of everything that I do. It's www.via.via Gemella Art House, and I will spell that out for you. www.VILLAGEMELLA House, HOUSE.com. And that's me. I love my website. In fact, I redid it the other day just to bring in some colors and so forth, take my own advice. And that's another thing, you always want to update your website. As you create new materials, you want to update your website. So please go to my website and
we'll put the information in the show notes as well, viewers,
yes,
so you know where that's at. Well,
correct.
Dr. Sophia, it's been amazing. Truly, you know your stuff, and we're going to make sure that, you know, we keep you in our circle. So as always, viewers, if you enjoyed this podcast, comment below, and that helps us with the rankings. Share this episode with any art friends you know and who, you know, are looking to make that step into the art as their career. And also join our Facebook community. We have more than 98,000 members and creators just like yourself who want to get inspiration, want to get advice, want to see different creations that they're making. And that's how you might just end up on one of these podcast episodes. So thank you. And thank you for being here, Dr. Sophia.
Thank you so much for having me, Kevin. It's a pleasure. It was my pleasure, and I'll be happy to engage anyone in conversation. Obviously, I talk a lot.
No, we love it. And feel free. If you see us in the Facebook community, definitely reach out to her. And, you know, if you want some advice, she'll let you know. All right.
Thank you.
See you.
If you enjoyed today's episode, then please like and share with your community. And please let us know if you have any suggestions for artists you'd like to hear on our show. This episode is sponsored by acrylicpouring.com. Acrylicpouring.com is the leading fluid arts website which provides fluid artists around the world the inspiration and tips they need. If you are new to fluid arts and want to get started now, then go to acrylicpouring.com to learn the 5 fundamentals of making beautiful acrylic pours for free. Also, join their Facebook community, where every day artists just like you are sharing their newest creations that just might end up on another one of these episodes.